Okay. Good afternoon. City of Lamarque City Council, special agenda of October 25th, 2022. Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Lamarque, Texas will conduct a special meeting on October 25th, 2022, beginning at 4 p.m. in the council chambers at 1109 B Bayou Road, Lamarque, Texas, as well as via video conference hosted through Zoom. In accordance with section 551.127B, the Texas Local Government Code, the presiding officer and the quorum of the Lamarque City Council intend to be and will physically be present at 1109 B Bayou Road, Lamarque, Texas. This location will be open to the public and the meeting will be broadcast at this location on Channel 16 and via YouTube. The council will meet for the purpose of considering the following agenda. The meeting has been called to order. Kiara, would you give us a roll call, please?
Councilmember District A.
Present.
Councilmember District B.
Present.
Councilmember District C is not here today. And Councilmember District D.
Present. And I am at 4101 Main Street, Lamar, Texas, 77568.
Thank you.
Hey, Casey. I didn't see you up there. All right, thank you. We are going to ask Minister Kimberly Yancey, who is also our council district representative of District A, to lead us in our invocation, and a very own resident of Lamarque and a veteran of the military, Mrs. Jackie Pennington, to lead us in our pledge. Let's stand, please.
Father, we come to you on this day, God, saying thank you for your great kindness. We thank you for the ability to breathe, the ability to walk, the ability just to live one more day. We pray, God, that you will give us wisdom, that you will help us to be kind to one another and to love one another. For you said, by this, people will know that you belong to me. So we ask right now for leadership, good leadership, and we ask right now for peace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Ms. Jackie. We're now moving to item 4, citizens participation, limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments from the public will be heard at this time. Any person with city-related business who is signed up to speak may speak to council, limited to 3 minutes. If you wish to speak, you may give the mayor or the presiding officer your full legal name, an item you wish to speak about. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the city may not deliberate on comments. Personal attacks will not be allowed, and personnel matters should be addressed to the city manager during normal business hours. If you're visiting with us via phone, you may press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. If you are visiting with us via the Zoom platform on smartphone, a tablet, or a computer, you may press the microphone icon on your screen to mute and unmute yourself. If you are in person, you may approach when called upon the podium to my left and to your right. Give the mayor your name and address, and you will be heard. Kyle, are there any persons online wishing to speak? Ms. Jennifer, can you unmute yourself? Ms. Earl. Okay. I thought perhaps she might wanted to speak. If at any time we can go back. I want to make sure if she wants to speak, she's heard. She can't talk. Okay. Welcome, Ms. Earl. Let's see, item 5.
There's one public.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. David, I am so sorry. We have one in the audience. It is David Pennington. Welcome, David. Name and address as always, sir.
David Pennington, 924 Cypress. I'm here to speak on item 5.5, resolution of the city of Lamarque authorizing the settlement of certain city liens on 113 Union. Now, one thing I noticed in the council packet was there is no documentation on this item. There are literally hundreds of pages of documentation to support this council packet for this meeting, but there is nothing supporting this resolution. I'd like to know why. And why is this on a special agenda and not on a regular council agenda? Seems like this is something important enough that it needs to be on the regular agenda. I got some questions on this. What was the total amount of liens? How much was actually settled out? I noticed on here where the city manager is authorized to do a settlement. What was the actual total amount? Because we don't know. Over what period of time did all these liens take place? It was a matter of months, years, whatever. That is not so stated. Were there any citations issued? And if there were, how many? And did any of these make it to court? Were there any fines issued on this property? Now, this is taxpayer money. Taxpayer dollars were used to pay for the mowing of this lot over years. And now the taxpayers are expected to forgive these liens. It's like we're being charged double. We pay for, take care of somebody else's property, and now you want us to forgive it. What about the other properties that have mowing liens against them in the city? Are those going to be be forgiven as well? I mean, I think the council is setting a precedence here that they may not want to go to. Don't be surprised if there are a lot of people who have liens that line up wanting to have their liens forgiven as well. You know, when I was in college, I took a course in psychology, and one thing I learned is you reward good behavior, not bad behavior. And I think this is an instance of where we're rewarding bad behavior. I think this council needs to reconsider this resolution. Maybe table it and come back and talk about it later on, because I'm personally against this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Say so, did you get enough to answer when we get to this discussion? Very good, very good. We'll move on. Thank you, David. Let's now move to item 5, resolutions, and also known as the consent agenda. The following items shall be considered for action as a whole unless one or more council member objects. Unless otherwise specified, the city manager is authorized to execute all necessary documents upon final approval of the city attorney. Council, are there any resolutions on the consent agenda that we would like to pull at this time?
Mayor, I'd like to pull the 5.3 and the 5.4 simply because of,
Pen.
I'm sorry. Pen. Oh, I thought you were telling me speaking the mic. Okay, I'm sorry. 5.3 and 5.4. Simply for some explanation. So,
Okay. Kimberly,
I'm good.
Casey?
I'm sorry, Mayor. This is also on the consent, the union property. So I want to pull that 5.
Okay.
5.
Okay. All right. We're pulling 3, 4, and 5. So let me read 1 and 2 so that we can act on 1 and 2, and then we'll get into the other items as they are delineated. 5.1, resolution number letter R-2022-0087, accepting the preliminary plat of 1.5434 acres situated in the W.K. Wilson League Abstract 208. Do we have any questions at this time for the city manager on this item? Resolution 5.2, resolution number letter R-2022-0088, awarding bid LM number 02-23 to Glistening Spaces Incorporated for janitorial services in the amount of $11,263.44. Are there any clarifying questions for the city manager at this time? Hearing none, we'll take those two together. I will entertain a motion.
So move.
There's a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now let's move to item 5.3, resolution number letter R-2022-0089, awarding requests for proposal for grant administration services for the CDBG-MIT-MOD grant. Caesar, would you like to clarify?
This is an item that we had ample discussion on previously. It was it's through the MIT-MOD. It is a allocation being done from the GLO through HGAC that was allocated. We appreciate the participation that took place from all those and discussion. The projects for these grants have not yet been determined. First step would be to get the administrator and/or engineers necessary for said projects. And then we would proceed accordingly as to how we would like to forego the process. We can entertain any questions at this time.
I'm gonna let Joe in. Let me ask you this, just simple question.
Sure. Sir.
Which monies are we talking about for clarification purposes so the public can know?
Certainly. Through the GLO, through the what's called the mid-mod process, it is a certain funding pool that was made available for federal funds. An allocation was done for a number of cities. Our allocation point, and I don't have the exact figure, was approximately 4.1, give or take. Approximately $4.1 million that get allocated, with a huge list that we anticipate to have a workshop session that we can invite the public as to what needs they would like to see addressed within the parameters, similar to how we did ARPA and how we're attacking some of those things. To then get feedback saying, here's a project, here's what we think that they're deemed for, and here's how much they would cost to forego.
This is not the $48.9 million grant.
No, sir.
award. This is not ARPA funds.
No, sir.
This is something that is being dispersed through an organization, federal dollars that we have been allotted,
Yes, sir.
different money.
Yes. Sir.
Okay, good. Joe.
In addition to,
In addition to the others, we just, okay, just want
Yes,
to make
ma'am.
sure that the public understood what we were talking about.
yes, sir.
Thanks, Mayor. And I wanted to, city manager knows this, we previously discussed this on these two items. My goal is to make sure that people do not, unfortunately, in this environment, we heard about it at the Texas Municipal League as well. When we have these items on, such as these larger awards under consent agendas, there is a tendency for some in our community to say the fix is on. Well, there is no fix, okay? Once again, these are mitigation disaster funds that are a result of Hurricane Harvey. They are dispersed in various parts of the Houston Galveston Area Council area, I think the 13 county area. We're fortunate to be one of the recipients. There's two requirements for use of these dollars. One is to have an administrator. That's the contract we're talking about now. The second contract will be a requirement to have an engineering company selected. Rick has taken the lead in organizing a review group per the rules of the General Land Office to have reviewers go over the responses to the city's request for proposals from various administrative companies. And that's this particular action here. And I want to thank Rick for his patience. I was one of the reviewers, and in the midst of trying to do this over the while I was away as well too. And thank you for your patience. It was a very comprehensive review. I appreciate it. You responded to all the questions that I had, and I happen to have a lot of them most of the time. And I appreciate that very, very much.
Appreciate
And and you might share with them the number of responses, companies we had, et
Yes,
cetera.
I was, for this item in particular, for item 5.3, we had 4 respondents. We had 6 reviewers. The scores are shown as the backup documentation shows. We do have a memo that Rick has prepared that there was a slight miscalculation. It did not affect the outcome. It was just a 1-point miscalculation. And it was still deemed that the vendor selected would have been the same vendor.
I just wanted to let you know in the folders at your desk is Rick's memo as well as the guidelines and the revised calculation sheets. And there's also one in the back of the room for the public to view.
Thank you.
And that would create a explanation as to the entire process. Obviously, also making sure that everybody was informed equally of the scoring process, and that the actual confirmation through the funding agency was made that we were, as you mentioned, following suit as to what guidelines we needed to follow.
Rick, I did have this question for you. The GLO guidelines, as well as the responses from the companies, including the particular company that scored the highest on the review, all indicate that they are willing to negotiate the fee.
That's correct, sir.
And so my question to you is that, although it only comes out to about $2,000, is there a willingness on our part to ask that the company selected be at that that less than $2,000. That was
It's-
The
that would
low-
be the lowest bid.
the lowest bid.
That decision is certainly probably city council and staff did not take that course of action yet, as far as discussing that with the.
Well, I'm reluctant to get involved in the administrative side. I'm just suggesting that if it were
We
me,
could.
I would, in terms of
Once it's awarded.
negotiations. That's all I'm
Understood and,
suggesting.
Understood and noted.
Other than that, I move approval of this contract.
Let's see if Kim, do you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Let's entertain Joe's motion to move approval. I'll entertain a second.
So move.
Any further discussion? Casey, you good?
Good.
Hearing no further discussion, we'll call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 5.4, resolution number letter R 2022 009. Selection of engineering services firm for GLO, CDBG, MIT, MOD grant program. Say sorry, Caesar, I'm sorry.
No problem. Similar to the other, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, this is a two-part funding proposal. This is the second half of it. The only difference for this one, we had 8 respondents.
9, actually. sir.
9, excuse me, respondents, which were scored. And the results are for the vendor selected. And I'm ready to entertain any questions you may have.
Council, do you have any questions for Caesar at this time?
Mayor, I just want to repeat that thank you to your patience with me and I guess all the other reviewers, especially since there were 9. I want to say that I was amazed that there were 9 responses to a little city like Lamarque.
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed with regard to these engineering companies is the responses came from companies as far away as Amarillo, Texas,
Sure.
and which made me feel good. At least the people are looking at our community and willing to and wanting to work with it as well too. So I thank all the companies that responded. That was my intent to once again share that it was a spirited review process and there was a spirited response to our. And having said that, I move approval of this item.
I second.
Joe has moved approval that Kim has seconded. Any other questions? Kim, you good? Casey? We'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 5.5, resolution number letter R 2022 0091, authorizing the settlement of certain city liens on 113 Union Street, Lamarque, Texas 77568. Caesar.
This item, and I'll ask if staff has any update on this item. This was an item that was brought to everybody through executive session. There were numerous calculations on this. The resident in question, it was passed down from one family to the next. Apparently over the years, I don't have all the information to answer as to how many years it's been with this particular item. I could just tell you that over numerous years, for the fact that we went from paper to digital and whatnot, some of the records were not readily available to acknowledge what these account funds were and to what amounts they were. At that point, when the person asked to try to rectify the situation, it had been handed down to them. They essentially questioned and said, well, can you show me what it is that I owe and what amounts and whatnot? Which is where we ended up to the point we were. At the request of the resident, we researched the situation deeper, brought everything back to you all for review. And this is the information to ratify and to move that forward. Barring that you would like to bring back more information so we can clarify that a little bit deeper, we can certainly do so and have that discussion. We could choose to table it. It is all your will.
Do you have the amount that it went down from?
I can get you that amount, yes. Yes, ma'am. You have the total amount? We can look that up for you.
While we're doing that, David brought up a question that I want to give you the opportunity to answer. Simple question. Why is this item on this agenda?
Certainly. And staff is also approaching. For the sake of time, we probably reluctantly should have brought it back at a previous agenda. Not knowing the direction we were going to have and the time between our meetings, we should have brought it back. There is a essence now and a urgency from them to sell the property. When ownership was taken over by these new owners, they were quoted a certain amount that they owed. They put the property for sale to that price based on what that price was. They were then later communicated that, hey, you don't owe this amount, you actually owe the much higher amount, which is almost double. At that point, that's what brought us into the standstill situation. Our understanding is that this property is ready to be sold, pending this item. And last conversation, Gus, unless you had one since the one that we had together with the new owner, they're ready to proceed as soon as we get this approval.
And one thing I would say to follow up on the city managers, logistically speaking, the lien release will be provided to the title company. The city will be paid out of closing. So that it's not like this is being provided in furtherance of a sale, to follow up on Mr. Garcia's comment about that.
So let's back up. Put a pin in that, Gus, because I want to ask you about that.
Sure.
So going back to what you were saying, Caesar, at some point, this family on Union decided that they wanted to sell their property. And they were made aware that there were liens on the property. And at some point in that exchange, or maybe subsequent exchanges, they were told that the dollar figure associated with the liens was one figure
Correct.
by our staff.
Correct.
Was it in writing?
Understanding that it may have been in writing or verbal, I'm not sure.
I don't believe it was his writing. I believe it was a phone conversation initially. And once we began to do research, we found liens to that amount. But as time went on, that because this has gone on for like 40 years, once they were quoted the one price, then additional liens were found that brought it up a little higher.
May I introduce, this is Michael Phillips, he's actually stepped up to be our code compliance supervisor. And since Steel Designs, and he knows the history on this.
So you're saying the dollar figure that was given over the phone,
Yeah.
who gave that figure? Well, I don't need to know that. We don't need to, do you all know who gave that figure?
We do.
Did that person admit to giving that figure?
Yes.
Okay.
So it looks as if, because this is my district, and this is a really hot topic in District A right now. You guys know that, and you have been very diligent in trying to find out. The problem is the backup from previous years is quite frankly piss poor. And if you don't have backup to substantiate the $48,000, you can only go by what you can prove, which is, according to my notes, $17,000. That's a big jump. But when you don't have the proper paperwork, and I know that as a former official of GHA and HUD, you don't have that and you get sued, that's an easy lawsuit, because there was not proper documentation prior to this team coming on. And that is what is happening in our city, where people are beginning to challenge the liens because the paperwork was not done correctly or in a professional manner. And so that is why when we had the meeting, that it's gone from 48,000 to 17,000. And that's a big jump. But I am not going to, and then this is an issue I think that we need to consider as an ordinance perhaps. What do we do when we are charging $48,000 for a piece of property that's only probably valued at $8,000 a lot? So maybe, there has to be a stopping point of some sort. I don't know. I'm saying logistically, we've got to go through this because these are things that historically in the past occurred and it hurt people. Now that we know that that was going on, I'm not going to sit here and continue a practice that I know is hurting my district. And I will shout from the rooftops. And so there are some things that we need to fix institutionally, a practice that was created before we got here, before you guys got here. So let's fix it now. Same thing like with the cemetery that we talked about before, continuing a practice that was from years of racial discrimination or Jim Crow. This is again, a system that is in place. So what do? Let's fix it. And that's why, David, to your answer, there were some issues with the documentation. There was some issues with it. And because of my background, I encourage residents to challenge it. Look for the backup to see what, so it's not rewarding bad behavior. What we're doing is making the city accountable and not trying to make money off of people that may not know how to read because of whatever, or may not be able to get in contact with them because they're moving constantly. So there's some loophole, and this team has been amazing trying to fix some of that and trying to correct that. So that's why before $8,000 to 17, because I know, right? I've been real quiet. So, but this is a practice that we're finding out more and more, and I don't want people to sue our city. I do not. But this is definitely a practice that I believe this staff is intelligent enough. Our city manager knows how to fix it, and we need to fix it and make this right. Because I could not look that woman in the face and say, you owe $48,000 when we had no paperwork to back it up. Oh, it was 38 now.
It was 38.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I stand corrected. He said 38,
It's 30 and change.
38 and change. Okay. I wrote it down.
And another issue was it's not just one lot, it was several.
It was 4 lots.
And they, of course, they were all connected. But it was several lots, and then the predecessors that did do a demolition and mowed the grass and maintained the lots at times, they did not keep the records that we keep.
Could I ask you a question? Seems to me that you would have to have, and I don't know this, I'm just asking, you would have to have extremely accurate and detailed information to put a lien on somebody's property in Texas. And if is that true? I don't even know if is that true?
You don't just like me.
That's-
Property without.
Is that
This team
to-
does
to-
it, but the previous team
to-
did not.
To answer this, to file a lien, all it requires is you to fill out the appropriate paperwork and take it to the county clerk's office. And the county clerk will accept it
okay?
as long as it meets with it's notarized. It's notarized and that's all the county clerk is going to
If
check.
I may, Mayor, as well, one of the policies that we put in place is anytime any liens are brought forward now, we have documentation, backup paperwork, including invoices, timestamped pictures as what are instituted as far as policies moving forward. So to Councilwoman Yancey's point, this team and staff moving forward as part of our SOPs is put that we're going to follow that process moving forward. Unfortunately, those records weren't found in previous years. At least it were not found by any of us who did the research on this item.
So who then is responsible for making sure that these items are appropriately recorded, documented, recorded, and stored? Who was responsible? Was that our city clerk? Not this city clerk. Was that the city clerk of the time or that time period?
No, sir, it was code compliance.
I was about to say, city clerk's office does not participate in
You don't
lien
participate,
activities.
It's handled through code compliance.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips can explain our process. We don't just mow lawn a lot and then
Right.
file a lien.
Right, we're having our contractor go out and take before and after pictures. They submit that documentation to us. We go out and review the documentation to make sure it's correct before we begin to do the instrument to place a lien on that property.
But before that even happens, Tell them what we do. We're required to do a lot of documentation. in those
yes.
cases. So,
We're sending each property owner a yearly letter, letting them know that we're mowing their properties. So that in this case with the union lots, I want to emphasize to the council that this case has went on for 40 years. So there's
Did you say
Set
40?
40 years. So there's a lot of documentation based off of how records were stored 40 years ago as compared to, say, in the last 20 years, that bogged down the process and getting the correct numbers. But now moving forward, we're taking our steps and doing things a lot more diligently to make sure that we have all of our correct documentation. And that the issue or the circumstance we have with this property won't happen again going forward.
So we were responsible for recording the paperwork.
yes, sir.
We didn't. Is it,
When the mowing program began, we did.
Yes.
Previously, they did not.
so when we started our blight reduction program, we started, but previous to that, that's where the issues are coming in? Okay,
Previously.
Essentially, yes.
okay, I get that. So then let me ask you this. Who was mowing before the implementation of our blight reduction program? Who was the contract mowing?
We could not find anything. We did an extensive record search. We found in the county records the liens that were placed, and we're talking back in the Carolina.
Sure.
And
Mhm.
you know, since, and we could not find records in STW, and I'm not sure what program was there before STW.
Yeah.
But we're talking 20 years. And there's no records that we can find anywhere. And I mean, of course, with retention, I'm sure there wouldn't be anyway, but they've simply filed the lien. There's nothing other than what was on that lien. for us to find.
Have you tracked this property since the implementation of the blight reduction program?
Yes,
Do you have a number for that?
since we started mowing it.
Since we started mowing it and we started recording it?
Here, if I may,
I don't have that with us today. I didn't know. we were
Yeah.
finished.
the actual number that we're proposing here in this resolution, the 17,000, is a number that we feel beyond a shadow of a doubt have the comfort that we can prove that number.
Here's where I think that folks like David may start to have heartburn on this. And then I think we can get to a place that we can be okay. I think that the public does not know enough about what we just talked about how things were before, prior to this blight reduction program, and how we are now in you all's assertion being more accountable to the taxpayer and to the property owner. Well, that's good news. But I think the public, the community needs to know the bigger story. You know, how we have gotten to this place, because when people hear that the city is owed $38,000 because we have been using taxpayer dollars to help maintain property that doesn't belong to the taxpayer, right? And they hear us considering waiving or reducing those fees. I think that we as a council need to make sure that we have done processes and that we are sure of the accuracy of the number. And I believe you, Caesar. I believe your $17,000 number. I do. I think that we have to do the math on this one. Yeah, any good school teacher, right? Do the math. And we need to bring that to council.
Surely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I think that is going to build on top of this this whole process, this new process that we're moving into. I think it'll be better for all of us. But how do we act on this, knowing that you all have went back, council has directed you all to go back to bring us a process. So why are we doing this one now if you're coming back with a process? And the answer to that would be they're trying to sell the property. Okay.
And to that point too, I just want to make note, and also to Councilman Yancey's point, eventually when these liens do, the amount of the liens exceed the value of the property. What has happened to a lot of our lots is, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the county comes and takes over ownership.
A lot of the lots are already owned by the Gulf County Trust, which is actually not owned by the county, but it's owned by the city of Marque and school districts. or the mayor and all that too. They all have a percentage of it. If you can correct me if I'm wrong, Gus.
That's right.
Trust me, I've sent enough letters to the county. They don't want to see you. They are already on it. And they won't maintain them, and they have told us that they won't maintain them, so we have to. Because we get complaints on them. And part of the blight program, we cleared a lot of those lots, and we continue to do that. The only time those come up in question is at the sheriff's sale. Now, there are other lots that there are deceased families that have no heirs, that there is no one to be accountable, and the county takes years and years and years before they put them on a sheriff's sale. That I have no control over, whatever their process is. Then there's some that do have an heir that lives in California or somewhere, kind of in this case. She doesn't live here. She's never lived here for 40 years and didn't care about the property, wasn't the owner of the property, and that don't want anything to do with it. And so we're still having to maintain them because there's still people living around, and it's a lot of those safety issues. So if we recoup a little bit of money sometimes from the sheriff's sale, or we recoup some of the money or all the money when they sell it privately. But there's some that we will never recoup.
Yeah.
And
Because,
then there's where we have a dilemma, what do we do?
yeah,
We
the,
have to maintain those lots.
the sheriff's sales are going to be normally your unpaid property taxes is the county has, or the delinquent, all of the entities have foreclosed their property tax lien, and oftentimes, given how long that process takes, there is not enough money to compensate. There's not enough money left over after those sales to cover other junior liens.
The other side is though, that takes it off our list. Because someone buys it, privately buys it, then we don't have to maintain it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we definitely have a duty to make sure that as much property as we can get back on the tax rolls is back on the tax rolls, and those property owners are actually investing in our city in the form of taxation. So we got to get there. Yeah, we have to get there.
You've gone from 135 lots to 67 lots. And there's houses being built on.
Yeah.
This program has worked.
I think we need the process. I think we're putting the cart before the horse, but this is Kim's district. And I definitely, before I confirm that's what I'm feeling, I want to hear from Kim, and certainly Casey's been quiet as well. This is a big issue for our community, Casey.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I just sent a message. I have to sign off in order to make it to my next meeting. But I would say I don't feel like I fully understand how much urgency this family is feeling. But I'm certainly in favor of us making decisions like this that set precedent with a little bit more information being presented to the public. Just as part of our packet, and like you're saying, there may be being a bit more documentation around this. And so I'm in favor of pushing it to our next official meeting or to December. But I like the conversation that's happening, and I'm very in favor, and I completely agree with everything that Councilwoman Yancey said about, responding to this very real need and a history of disparate treatment, and making sure that we make plans moving forward so this doesn't happen, and so that also code and everyone else can do their jobs just a whole hell of a lot easier. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Casey.
Sorry, everyone.
Thank you. See you next time. Kim?
This is an urgent issue for this particular family. And I'm grateful for her diligence, because we did find some things out, because she is an accountant and she did challenge it. I don't have a problem tabling it, though. Our next meeting is going to be held when? That's not 2
November
weeks.
14th.
November 14th.
It gives us about
But-
3 weeks.
Oh, right. And so then it can be in the packet as David has requested,
Sure.
the actual numbers. And so then we can be prepared to actually kind of share the history of not having the paperwork prior to in the files with the county. And that's the thing. If you don't have it with the county, you can't charge that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this city did that
Yeah.
in the past, and we've got to correct that action. So, so if we tell a story like that, I don't have a problem taking it to the next. I know she may be disappointed because she's been trying to get this resolved, but I think we can make this a teachable moment for our city.
And I think so it's imperative that, I'm sorry, Caesar.
It's okay.
Listen, we were at Bayou Fest the other night
Oh, come on.
and, and Caesar's wife told me that if I can't roll my R's, when I say Cesar,
Caesar,
that the American way to pronounce it is Caesar. I was trying to be respectful
right?
of Mr. Garcia's heritage.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to just remember to say Caesar,
Caesar.
so I don't have to see his wife again. But Caesar, I think, would we also be able to have at least a preliminary report on the other question about this project? As far as the mowing, how consistent was it being mowed? Are there any accounting issues with the contractor? If we can have all of that for that November meeting, we would be able to resolve all of this, I would think.
Certainly.
I would think we would be able to do some serious work on the process, perhaps even adopt a process. Then we would be able to come back to union and implement, the process.
Certainly. We'll make sure we bring that
Go ahead,
back.
Joe.
First item, I want, once again, sometimes people think that we go back into that back room
Mhm.
and we're all making all sorts of deals. There are no votes that happen. It would be against the law. That's number one. But the reason that it ended up there is that under our Public Information Act and our disclosure rules in Texas, rightfully, as the city attorney says, items that are in anticipation of litigation of a lawsuit are discussed in executive session. So that's where we ended up starting that at that point. It was not an attempt by any of us to protect anybody. It was council doing their job to bring this and make us aware of this particular situation. Certainly, Councilperson Yancey was aware because she was dealing with this family. That's number one. Number two, in the course of some of these discussions and our past discussion with Ms. Benstaver on the issue of cutting lots, Lamarck, being the city as it is faced with many instances where a mother or a father dies. The family doesn't necessarily have the resources to go hire counsel to take this, probate the matter. I just dealt with a fire yesterday in Galveston. Exactly. Both the two houses burned down. They were owned by the mother. The two brothers have lived in this house for over 12 years. There's an obstacle because they can't do anything because the property has never been put in their name. We see this here in Lamarck. These are some of the properties that you're dealing with. If there's a solution to that or option, perhaps we as a city, as other cities have done, can include links to Lone Star Legal Services that provides this sort of assistance to these entities. Gus may remember, he's younger, but I certainly can remember.
Right.
This was an issue that came up after Hurricane Ike in Galveston, where we had many homes destroyed. And people could not even apply for the assistance that was being provided to rebuild their home or rehabilitate their home simply because it was not in their name. We worked with the legislature and passed then the heirship affidavits that permitted us to very simply then work with the transfer of property in a manner that was economically feasible for most people. So maybe some of these things can be done, Mr. Mayor, on our own website as resources for our community, given our demographics of our community. And I'm perfectly willing to go ahead, but I'll defer if we want to table this. I think that our lesson learned was that as we've come to understand, there's been a lot of things that done in the past, and there's not been documentation that's been attached to that. And that was the issue here.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to deprive the city of any of it. We want to make sure that the city has earned the right to charge the fees that it's being charged, that is being charged to this family.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. Thanks, Mayor.
I am with you on that, Joe. And I think the best way, which, again, we're definitely gonna call for a vote. And we ought to vote our conscience. And I don't have any problem with that. But I think the best way for us to do exactly what you said is to start this new process off with paperwork, with our findings, with the process, with the procedures that we're going to implement. And then we can move forward now, and it is no longer any ambiguity involved. There's no longer any, well, why did you do that for this or that? All of it's going through a process. By the time it gets to council, it's been vetted. We know the numbers, the process has been utilized, and we can go forward in good conscience, knowing that we've done our due diligence. I think the only issue today is not that this family has not been injured. Of course, they have been injured. It's not that we have not performed. We know that we have not performed. That's clear, but it has nothing to do with this group and this council. So I think the best way forward is for us to allow say-so to give us a full report on what happened, not only in this case, but in the other cases of question, with a recommendation for a policy that this council can adopt, a fair policy that will service the needs of property within our community, from here, and beyond the next 10 years or so. The other thing I wanted to mention before we move forward, to Joe's point, is also executive sessions are appropriate when you are in 551.072, which is a deliberation about real property. And so we're deliberating about property and property owners' rights and things of that nature. So many times they have to originate in executive session. Right. Anybody have any other questions?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
The 40 years, that is a long time. And I'm trying to see what we can do to eliminate that or have something, because that is a long time. That would never happen under my leadership. 40 years. I mean, there's got to be something. And I don't know what that is that we could put into place.
With this one, this instance, she just came into the picture like within the last year.
Right, because she didn't know she owned.
Although, in our due diligence, we try to find every single person attached to the family that we can find. We contact.
Right.
It's your property, or nearly did it. And it's a whole process we go through to try to find something. In this case, she just came into the picture when she was offered
To take the
someone
property.
buy it.
Mhm,
Before that, she said she just ignored it.
mhm, yeah,
And she could, but she lives out of state, so she's not here, so maybe she doesn't see it.
right. So,
So this isn't something that she's been looking at, or she did on it for years. Her
mhm.
family, we tried to contact the family, but working in the city.
So my question to you is then what do we do in that instance? Like what policy, and that's like I said, that's what you're talking about.
Right.
What policy can we do? Because that's excessive. 40, I mean, that's a generation really. So I don't know what we could do to eliminate that legally. I don't know. So I just want to put down there. Okay. I don't want to be said that you can hold your property for 40 years and not take care of it. That's not good either. Right.
Right.
So what safeguards can we put into place to make sure that we're making our city a beautiful city? Because when people think they can dump, and we're on the buildings and standards, and we've had people come and say, everybody wants to, this is what we do in the market. No, not anymore. You're not dumping here anymore.
Yeah.
You're not going to use our place, our city as a storage center. And so to change that, and we've got to change our policies too, that perhaps we didn't have, so we can make a new standard going forward. So
I think you all are doing good work, Caesar. It's okay. It's okay. Don't look so glum over there. Y'all are working. It's working out fine. It's working out fine.
problem.
All right. It sounds like we're gonna have a motion to table, with the intent to solve this issue in November. You good with that, Kim?
mhm.
Joe, you good? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
There's no discussion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. Seriously. This is definitely a hard situation for all of us.
Can we make sure that we put the numbers in the packet, the actual numbers, so we'll know for sure, so the public will know as well.
Item 6, new business. Items presented to council for discussion and possible action. 6.1, Texas Community Development Block Grant Services. Solicitation of services for grant administrator and engineering services for Texas Community Development Block Grant administered through the Texas Department of Agriculture. I see Rick has approached the podium. So Mr. Rick, go ahead.
This item is similar, just smaller grants, $500,000 maximum grant through Department of Agriculture. Community block grant can be used for water, sanitary, storm, or other activities. The notice of funding opportunity has not been released yet. I have not seen that. It's I expected the applications are due spring of 2023. And the motion is to move forward with solicitation for a grant administrator and engineering similar to the project we just discussed.
Some history on this one. Usually the funding cycle is shortened. Very quick turnaround. In an effort to try to move this forward, we would like to proceed with these services. This is $500,000. It is a smaller amount, but in an effort to be aggressive, as we said we would be with any and all grant opportunities, we are pursuing this one to just as much.
You're asking for permission to pursue this grant.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because the city manager has to ask for permission to pursue grants.
It is my
That's
custom
the
to do
way-
so.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
It is, well, and I say that because historically, maybe that hasn't been the practice. So I would like to institute the practice because most folks understand that when we do say we're going to pursue this, that if in lieu there comes a match requirement down the line, that we are being responsible financially for future matches that we're going to have for some of these opportunities.
This is just a teachable moment. In municipal government, there can be no grant application without a council directing the manager to proceed. It's just a teachable moment for all those out there that don't know municipal 101. We cannot have $48.9 million worth of grant funding without a council saying, apply for that grant. Can't happen. What are we thinking about as far as these monies?
So the qualifications, correct me if I'm wrong, are mostly water infrastructure related.
It's open. One of the suggestions I might recommend, and we can take a look at it once the NOFO comes out, is even parks.
Parks, we want to focus on parks. This is not the same as the boat ramp grant.
No.
No, it's different.
Right.
That's through.
Go ramp was Texas Parks and
That
Water.
was also
Texas
$500,000, right?
Wildlife, yes.
Up to.
Okay. This is something totally different. Did you?
And this is Department of Agriculture.
Yes, sir.
Is this restricted to projects that are designated in projects in our community that have a designation as a rural?
Actually, the city
Classification under-
qualifies, city qualifies for the grant because we're less than 50,000.
In
with the
population.
program.
Well, I know there's less than 50,000.
Right.
However, the match increases. I sent this to you.
Yes.
The match increases,
Correct.
Based
So-
on based on the area.
the area, and yeah.
So
You
those
know.
are things that we would need to take in consideration when applying and what amount we apply for. But so to answer that question, we want to do is as we had our first capital improvement focus group that we had, the idea, the intention, as we brought to you at the last meeting, was to get an actual advocacy group to actually get behind our capital improvement plans, to submit a formal capital improvement plan. Then we will, to answer your question, what would we like to pursue these funds with? We would attack it towards whatever our plans are. If the will is for us to pursue parks, we would do so in the categories based on the conceptual parks master plan. If the intention is to do it towards water or towards sewer or towards stormwater drainage, what have you, then that would be the will based on our priority list that we put together once we present you that capital improvement plan. We're anticipating, because when we are given the green light for this and when the notice of funding opportunity becomes available, or NOFO, as you might hear us say, the turnaround for this one is usually rather quick, and the application takes a while. And we want to be ready for it before, because it, now we'd have to put this out, come back, grade it, then bring to you a contract as we did earlier today for the other one. That is a minimum 30-day process, more than likely.
And we would be able to make the determination of a project. I mean, $500,000 is still a fair amount of money, but in the big scheme of things, it may go a lot longer. Let's say a parks project, possibly a sidewalk project. It won't go very far on streets. We've got funding earmarked for water. We have a lot of money earmarked for sewer. That recent project we talked about is $4 million that we're planning on doing stormwater. So it's a matter of looking at all avenues of the city. Where can we use $500,000 that would be beneficial?
Sidewalks, walkability is what you thought you might be
That's an
looking at.
area, yeah. And we've also got a current grant in for that, as the reconnecting communities.
Yeah.
So that's a competitive grant. This one would be
Very competitive.
too.
What about, I hear a lot about, and I know we have issues out at Mac McGaffey Highland Bayou Park with our pond out there and the erosion. I'm sure you heard about that.
Right, yes.
Would that be appropriate?
You could, I mean, that's an earmark that we've got as far as that bulkhead wall and repairing that. We've actually got a estuary, a grant in right now through
Okay.
TCQ that I called on today, by the way. And we haven't heard back on that one.
And currently several grants that we've applied for. Anything that comes into our wheelhouse that we feel that we can apply for, but also within our constraints. We don't want to, the great thing would be for us to be awarded all these grants and then figure out how we're going to match them afterwards. But we don't want to put ourselves too far ahead and bite off more than we could chew.
Right.
We're trying to find our sweet spot, but we are being aggressive.
Very good. Any other questions? Good job, guys. What do you need from us?
Motion.
Motion to pass.
There it is. Joe gave it to us.
Second.
There's Kim. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item 6.2, items for the good of the order. Additional items to bring awareness to council and the community, as well as future agenda item requests are now accepted at this time. Council, do we have any items for the good of the order?
Yes, I want to make our council aware. I am really going to encourage the naming ordinance. I know we talked about getting the ordinance so we can name things. I want to kind of put it out there for everyone. I would love if we could rename Bayou Fest, the Bobby Hawkins Bayou Fest, since this was one of his signature, his legacy while he was mayor. Also, at the suggestion of our former councilman, Robert Michnick, about renaming our local library after Geraldine Sam, our first African-American mayor, and then to rename Cedar Street after the only senator from our city, Kate Bailey Hutchinson. So I think those are individuals that have definitely left their mark on our city. And I think that it's time that we work as a history teacher, I think it's time that we recognize some of the people that have done an amazing job while they were here and definitely left a legacy. So I kind of want to just put that on your brain and let our citizens know too that I will be bringing that to our council. I will be out of town. I won't be able to attend the trick or treat, but I look forward to seeing the pictures and everyone on this Thursday at the library. And I'm loving those LED lights and Lake Road and all the great things that are coming to our city, and excited about the live event center that hopefully will be coming available online by this summer. So I'm excited about sharing what's happening in Lamarque. This city is about to boom. Joe and I actually went to the TML and the mayor was at TML as well. And then we went to the Texas Economic Conference, Texas Development Economic. Oh yeah. So we learned a lot about what's happening, what's coming to Texas. And Lamarque, we're making some good progressive moves. And I'll let Joe elaborate a little bit more about what we learned at that conference. But it was good to know that some of the things that we're doing is right on track right on track with what our state is trying to do as well to help their cities. With that, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Hmm.
let me say this. I'm sorry. I need to say this. I'm sorry, Joe. When we did National Night Out, I mentioned a lot of other people. I forgot to mention what Malin Salazar did with her team at the high school. That was amazing for the second year in a row. I forgot to mention that at our last meeting. So I just want to thank Madeline Salazar and her team and all the vendors that came to that. And I did get some responses from some of my parents that attended, how nice that was. So that is becoming a nice event where people are looking forward to. So hats off to them as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you, Councilperson. Thank you, Mayor. First, super excited to have participated for the second year in a row at the Texas Municipal League Conference. Every time I learn more, I interact with old friends and make new friendships. And one of the things that I want to say to our community is that session after session after session that I sat in, there were some constant messages, constant challenges that I heard from smaller communities across the state. And then some were applicable to larger communities as well too. On the development side, in our smaller communities, I heard all of them asking, I only wish that we had a Walmart in my community. I only wish that we had a Sam's in our community. I only wish that we had a
Amazon.
grocery store in our community. I only wish that we had an access to water other than from wells. I only wish that we had an Amazon in our community. And I'm thinking there, God, we're a lucky community. We are. We have that. We have to do, I want to say this to staff, and I've said this before, I said it before you, Cesar, okay, that we do need to communicate better and go and get the information and show to our community the value of the communities in terms of sales tax revenue that's generated, to show the increases in sales tax, to show what we're doing as a community and the value. We don't understand and see that. So I ask that on that side. That's something that was important because that was impressive to see all those graphs. Second thing I was excited to hear, and we'll pick this up later, I think, Mayor and Mr. City Manager, but we see community after community dealing with the issue of water rates, garbage rates, and sewer rates. And all of them are doing that, all of them. And they're approaching that differently. I've hoped that we can approach that a bit uniquely. And for once and for all, create what the law said we're permitted to do is an enterprise fund. We have our own standalone enterprise, which consists of our water, our garbage, and our sewer. And we build that up. There was a community our size north of Dallas that had already in that enterprise fund. Now, mind you, it's a combination of a old town and a new town, about our size now, 25,000 residents. But they said we bit the bullet and the council bit the bullet. And they worked and they created the enterprise fund, and they now have a surplus in that fund of $17 million after 8 years doing that, $17 million. So there are ways out there other than this traditional approach of let's get into a big old fight about how much we're going to raise the water rate. And then 3 months later, come back and talk about how much we're going to raise the sewer rate and why and then a little bit later, how we're going to do this for the garbage. Folks, it doesn't make sense in my world. It doesn't make sense. Let's get it all done. And so I heard about that as well too. One of the other things that I heard, and this, Ms. City Secretary, is important, I think, to your particular area, is that we do live. I mean, some days I just don't turn on the TV at all because I don't want to be brought down by everything I see. I've been to enough positive enrichment seminars where I say, get rid of the negative, right? And that for me is the best way. Get rid of the negative, turn off the TV. But I see in community that said, look, we're being slammed by individuals that are overwhelming us with these requests for public information. And I thought we were being slammed, but when I heard that a community, more than one community, and their elected leadership say, we have people sending us over 100 requests a day on different things, and we cannot possibly keep up with that. We cannot possibly. And at the session for the cities, the municipal league, there were attorneys as well that presented sessions. And so we learned and became familiar with the vexatious requester ordinances that some cities are passing, which is permits some sort of control then and permits the city secretary to respond, but it also does not overwhelm he or she in their roles. Because bottom line, they do have other obligations to prepare an agenda, to work with other departments. So I hope that perhaps we can remember that vexatious requester ordinance that has been helpful in other jurisdictions as well too. The economic development department or conference was also outstanding in terms of the relationships, not only the speakers, but they really painted a picture of Texas, our demographics. They also, the speakers, which are nationally known, the publisher of the Texas Tribune, the Perryman, the economist Perryman, who's been around for a long time. I remember hiring him for one of our REMAX conventions. So you can tell he's been around for a while. And but as he said, and both of them said, some things are going to be popular from one side of the political spectrum if you're there, or another side if you're there. But folks, the real work that we do as communities cannot be done, as he said, by the burnt ends of the roast. The best part of that roast is in the middle. We have to come together. We have to learn compromise in order for us to create stronger communities. And that's an economist saying that. Otherwise, you're not going to have sustainable growth in your communities. And I took that message to heart there on that side. We can disagree, but we have to work together, come together on those sides. And that was a message there. Speaking of new relationships, on the last day, just by chance, I noticed out of the corner of my eye, a GLO table and TCEQ, and they talked about I think it's called brownfield sites. And that interested me. And I said, we have a whole Superfund site in Lamarque in our limits that is basically, look, we might as well just cut it out. It's dead earth, right? But there's land around there that can be developed, but that has that taint.
Right.
Is there money? Is there funding? Is there a process? I got excited when I heard there was, both from TCQ and GLO, and I conveyed that information to our city manager, and hopefully we'll follow up on that. So there are dynamic opportunities out there for us as well. And Mr. City Manager, forgive me, and Mr. Police Chief Aragon, forgive me, but this is exciting news, folks. And I want to leave this meeting to be an exciting time. That our police department was recently awarded only 1 out of 180 communities nationwide that applied for this grant, and only 1 of 12 communities in Texas that are the recipients of this grant for $750,000 for community policing, for us to go out and hire 6 additional police officers for our community. Imagine that.
Yeah.
We are at the same level in the award of this grant as the city of College Station, who tied with us. We were the 5th highest award of this $750,000
Nationwide.
nationwide. Well, no, in Texas, 5th, but I have to look at that, but one of 180 nationwide.
Mhm,
Now, folks, for me, that is a special community.
mhm.
And thanks for the leadership that we have that's gone out and sought the funding for this council getting behind our administrative staff and going out and seeking it. But now without raising or decreasing your taxes or anything else, we're going to have 6 new police officers on our streets here in Lamarque, Texas.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was one of the other things I heard on that wish list of those smaller communities. How do we get more police officers? So we not only with our Walmart and our Sam's and our Amazon, now we also have 6 new police officers
And our
that are
live
being
music.
paid for for a period of time. I think it's 4 years as a grant, and it goes from there on that side. So thank you. I'm proud to be part of this community. I'll continue to be an advocate for this community in any way that shape I can, regardless of where you live in Lamarque. But as I said, in January, I'll be here for 60 years. God willing, I make that. And let's all continue growing and praying with each other and once in a while hugging each other to say we're good folks all. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Joe. And certainly that is more exciting news for our little town. We know that right outside, right there on Bayou, we know that the road is being completely redone, and certainly our downtown area is being prepared for great retail commercial development. We can go on and on with the dog track development that Ms. Yancey just spoke about. Certainly Amazon and other developments that Kathleen has talked to us about on the southern border of our city, home permits moving forward at an accelerated pace. 4 subdivisions being built as we speak. The list goes on and on and on. I don't know what they see. What I see is progress. I see one of the most talented councils that this county has ever seen. I see the most talented council that this city has ever seen moving forward in lightning speed. I see an aggressive city manager who is more willing to take a risk on to benefit our citizens and to do his due diligence to make sure that every voice in our community is heard. I see so many wonderful things happening in our city. I don't know what they're seeing. I see all sorts of positive progress. Now, here's the thing. If you've been here, Joe's been here 60 years. I've been here 26 or 27 years. Kyle's been here a long, long time. and Chad's been here. He was born here, and Crow was too. Don't mind them. But if you've been here long enough, you realize that Lamarque is moving forward, and it's exciting. But you've had to have either been here long enough, or you would have had to believe those of us that have. Kiara is born somewhere around here. So we know what we see. We know when we got the goods, right? And so certainly this is an exciting time. I wanted to make sure that I said that I was grateful for this year's Bayou Fest, for every person that was a part of it. It was a wonderful time out there on, was it last Saturday? My days are running together. Was it last Saturday? Last Saturday. All right, Saturday before last. My days have been running together. But it was I saw Miss Yancey out, and certainly Joe was out volunteering as he does for much of our Bayou Fest. And I saw Caesar out there, and Gus and Kiara and many of our staff members, police, fire, public works. And I was proud of each and every one of our staff members and the contribution that we made. We were very professional, very friendly. And people commented on their perception of our town. We didn't know that Lamarque was like this. Like what? Friendly. And so we continue to move forward. Thank you all for making Bayou Fest be an incredible opportunity for us to promote who we are. I went out also this past Saturday. That's where I was at, Kim. This past Saturday, I was out at Painted Meadows for their Halloween festivities. Went out there, saw about 30 folks, all of them smiles on their faces. Not one of them had a complaint. In fact, many of them were excited about the police department and the fire department being out, and excited about some of the new things that are happening within our community. A lot of questions, and that's a good thing. And I wanted to remind you this Thursday, at our library, we will have our annual trunk or treat program for our children. We would like for you to come out. I believe this will also be in concert with Haley's. So it sounds like you would be able to go from one parking lot and be escorted, I guess, across the street. I don't know how that's going to work, to the other parking lot. But we will have a community celebration for Thanksgiving for our young people on Thursday. Please be a part. If you do nothing more than stop by to say hi to those young people, I think that would be extremely, extremely important. Before we go, many of you have called and have asked about me and how I feel and how I've been feeling these days. I want to let you know that I feel great. I feel stronger than I felt in decades of my life. Don't laugh at me, Miss Jackie. I'm not that old, but I have lived a few decades. And many of you have been concerned. Let me say this: if the council will allow me on next meeting, after all of this is over, I would like a few moments of time to share with you what it was like for me these last 16 months of my life. And you will be surprised. But I think it's important that I share this so that all of our community, those that are suffering from mental health issues and those that perhaps have been bullied and harassed, whatever those things have happened to you in your life, my goal is to share my experience so that others might have benefit from my experience. And if the council will allow me, I promise, Gus, I won't attack anybody or name names. I'll simply tell you about the days and times of my life in these past 18 months. There's nothing else. Say so. Caesar, did you have something?
We don't struggle with that.
No, Mayor, thank you. Council, thank you for your continued support. We've made notes from today's meeting. When we should have bring those items back, we'll work with staff to get these items back to you. And we'll continue being aggressive, hunting for opportunities that can make Lamarck better.
Very good. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is that a second? You want to go home, Joe?
Sorry, yes, sir.
Joe, want to say, Joe, you gonna stay, Joe?
Yes, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.